Hello everyone, this is Tim. It is Sunday, January 10th, and the past 4 days have been quite eventful as the first annual HEX conference was held on stream and put on YouTube. It was organized by a man named Matty Allen, and it featured just a whole lot of people that have contributed to the HEX community to one degree or another. And I had the privilege of being invited to speak on the first day. And I was part of a panel of people that were each given about a 5 to 10 minute slot to tell their story about how they got involved in cryptocurrency and in HEX. So that was quite fun. It was quite entertaining. When I'd first gotten the invitation from Matty, he had asked if I was set up to have a green screen, which I told him I didn't. And I just assumed that I would not be qualified to speak. But then about a day or two before it was about to launch, he had sent me another tweet saying, okay, you ready to go? So I'm like, sure. So I ended up going over to a friend's house to set up to partake in this stream because his internet is much better than mine. My internet, I'm still working on trying to get it substantial enough to do live streaming. So when I got over there and got set up, the guys that were backstage with me were like, well, you got to get set up with a green screen. And I'm like, I asked my friend, I'm like, do you have something green I can hang up on the wall behind me? And his wife could only come up with a light green quilt that basically wasn't green enough. So my friend was like, well, I've got a tarp because you can also do a blue screen. So he had a tarp out in his garage, but it wasn't just a little thing. This thing was like 30 feet by 30 feet. I mean, it was gigantic. So we had to unfold it slightly, just big enough for us to use. And of course, all we had were thumbtacks to hang this thing up. So we were basically scrambling to get my backdrop ready. And then the tarp was reflecting the light too much, so it wasn't working. And then the one guy was like, well, maybe if you wore a darker colored shirt, like a black shirt instead of the gray shirt you're wearing, maybe that will help. So my friend was out in another room, and I asked him, I'm like, do you have a black shirt I can borrow? And he's like, well, the only black shirt I have right now that isn't dirty is the one that I'm wearing. I'm like, so he's like, okay. Not only did he let me use his house, but he gave me the shirt off his back so I could participate in this conference. And the only lighting I had to work with was a table lamp and an overhead lamp. So I spent a lot of time positioning this light in different places and positioning my body in different places. And I ended up sitting on the floor with my laptop on a stool, and I had to sit sideways, and I was sitting on my foot to give myself just a couple inches more elevation. And so my leg had fallen asleep by the time it was my turn to speak. And I'm having to hunch over like this with my laptop with the camera to keep the light from reflecting off of my forehead and making it look like I had a hole in my head on stream. So needless to say, I was a little bit nervous by the time it was my turn to speak. Normally I wouldn't have been that concerned, but as a result, I just kept talking incessantly. I was hoping to be a little more engaging with Matty, but I just kind of took over right away, and just so I can get out whatever it was I was going to say. But it was still it was still great to be able to participate in it. I'd go through all of it all over again. Um, Maybe next time I'll balance like a poodle with rabies in one hand and a fishbowl full of gasoline in another hand. Just make it that much more challenging. um, but really, none of that has anything to do with the real reason I'm making this video. The real reason has to do with something that was brought up at the meetup in Idaho, and it's something that Richard has brought up in live streams before, and he has also mentioned it at this conference also. And that is the attraction that HEX has for veterans and why that is so. It seems like people who have military service are the most common demographic of people that are involved in HEX. I mean, even at the meetup, almost half the people there were veterans. And I don't have any military experience, so I can't answer this question from experience. But some things have come to me that I believe are an answer as to why this is so. And really what it comes down to is that humans have a natural inborn desire to experience freedom. It's like we all have some kind of conception of freedom and what it looks like to operate in all of our lives. And this is why I believe a handful of farmers were able to overthrow the most powerful military in the world and set up what is now the United States of America. It's because of this desire and this intuition of freedom. And unfortunately, there are others who understand this and they have exploited it to their own interest. And unfortunately, I feel that the United States military epitomizes this probably more than any other country's military does. And that's really tragic because it takes advantage of people not only for their participation in military operations, but it also has a tendency to put people in positions where they, for the sake of following orders from their chain of command, they end up doing things that was really unconscionable, and they probably would have not wanted to do that after the fact. And those actions carry consequences for people. And I believe this is why suicide is such an issue with veterans. And it's also an issue that many people don't want to talk about because nobody seems to really have an answer for it. And I have a friend who lives here in this county named Adam Kokesh, who was someone that was wanting to be the Libertarian presidential candidate for this last election. And he's very vocal as a veteran about the crisis of suicide among veterans. And you contrast that with what HEX is. And really what HEX is an opportunity for people to pursue their concept of freedom. And I believe this is the reason why so many veterans and people with military experience are attracted to HEX, because it's an opportunity for them to fulfill what they thought being in the military would fulfill. And that is an opportunity to spread their concept of freedom that they have. And not only that, but it can even give people a way to redeem themselves for things that might be burdening them, actions that they've done in their past. And while you can't change the past, you can be resolute about how the future is going to be and your part in it. And this, it's just one more reason that I appreciate being a part of this operation and this community, and being invited to address the community, because like I said in my last video, I have an understanding of freedom also, just like everybody else. And that understanding does not have to come at other people's expense, which is one of the reasons that I'm so motivated to pursue it. And I have no doubt that that's the case for everybody else in the HEX community, especially the veterans. It's like they want to do what has been on them to do for so long, to have that ideal world. So here we are. And that's probably the extent of what I'm going to share right now. There's another subject that I wanted to bring up, but it could be a little more extensive, and I don't want this video to drag on too long. So anyway, I hope you all have a good day. I hope you enjoyed the HEX conference as much as I did. If you didn't get to see it, it's on YouTube. Just look for Matty Allen, M-A-T-T-I, and first HEX conference. Just do a search on that and it'll pop up. So yeah, life is good. HEX right now on the price chart is experiencing what is called a cup and handle formation. And basically what happened is HEX went to an all-time high. We had a lot of retracement right before big payday because of somebody shilling a copycat, and just FUD regarding big payday. Just a lot of price retracement that took us down to a low. But then after we plateaued for a while, there's been a lot of buying over the past couple weeks. So basically we've gone back up to all-time high territory, and then the price has gone flat. And that is because the liquidity on the largest exchange where HEX is traded is too low for people who are selling to push the price down drastically. When there's low liquidity on an exchange, the market value of an asset, it doesn't require that much economic energy for the price to be pushed up or down. So as people are selling, more people are buying, and it's basically just creating like an equilibrium. And traditionally on price charts, when something is showing that kind of activity, that's usually a sign for an explosion in appreciation, because that equilibrium is a demonstration of resiliency. In other words, there's enough interest in the product and enough people staked in it to create enough price support to keep the price from dropping drastically. Now, of course, people could emergency end stake and, um, you know, change all that. But fortunately, HEX is set up in a way that when people do not keep their word and they prematurely end their stakes, the penalties that the contract imposes on them are distributed between the stakers and what is called the origin address. And the origin address, I believe, is just as invested in the long-term success of HEX as the staker class is. So that's certainly what has been happening over the course of this past year, and the momentum is continuously moving in that direction. So I have no reason to doubt that that's the same direction we're going from here on out. So it's still early. HEX is only a penny a piece. You know, there was a time when Bitcoin was only a penny a piece, and now it's over $40,000. And that's great if you've been holding on to Bitcoin for the last 10 years, but most people haven't. And one of the reasons for that is you're not getting paid additional Bitcoin for holding your Bitcoin. So there's not that much incentive to hold on to it. You know, HEX is the opposite. You stake HEX, you get paid in HEX for the time that you stake for. So regardless of what the market value is, you're still accumulating more of the product. And all of the HEX that is available to stake with was all issued during the launch phase, which was the first year. So now the only way to acquire HEX is to buy it off of the exchanges rather than being able to acquire it directly from the contract. And since most of the supply is being held by the origin address in liquid form and not in stake, the stakers are benefiting from a higher interest rate because the total amount that is staked is only 10%, and by the origin address holding on to its stack in liquid form is causing HEX to have what is called a higher market cap. The market cap is simply the total circulating supply of an asset multiplied by its market value. So the more HEX that exists in liquid form as circulating supply, the higher the market value, or the market cap, I should say. So anyway, life is good. HEX is great. So I hope you are too. Until then, I'll talk to you later.